Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a story. Well, it's about a criminal whose legend was forged not just in gold, but in the psychological war he waged against the police.
It's a fascinating case.
We're going back to 1985 Chennai to unpack the rise of Kuthirai Venkatesan, a bandit who turned every single crime into this deliberate, laughing taunt.
It really is a compelling look at how arrogance itself can become a weapon. We've pulled excerpts detailing his life and, his very specific methods. We're focusing on his early career.
The very beginning.
Exactly. The moment he steps out of the shadows and just issues this direct, unforgettable challenge to the entire police force, it really defined a decade of anxiety for South Chennai.
So our mission today is to get past the basic police file.
Right.
We need to understand the core of his success, not just what he stole, but the dark psychology that was guiding him.
And how he used humiliation to stay one step ahead.
Right. So you, the listener, will understand why Venkatesan became known as the bandit who taunted Chennai.
And to do that, you have to start with his motivations. The source material uses this really powerful phrase for it, the dual dark greed.
Dual dark greed.
Yeah. Venkatesan's crimes were never just random acts. They were meticulous, planned attacks, and they were driven by two sort of overlapping and unstoppable obsessions.
So not just a standard theft, there's a personalized depravity here. What were these two obsessions?
Okay, so the first one is what you might expect. It was his material motives, a fierce, unending desire for Danam wealth, specifically gold ornaments.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the second obsession is what makes his story so unique and, frankly, so terrifying. It was a sexual frenzy, a psychological drive that had to be satisfied at the same time as the theft.
So wait, he wasn't satisfied just getting rich. He needed both things for the crime to even happen.
Yes, and that's the key. This dark, dual greed created the most rigid and specific selection criteria for his targets.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically pre-qualified every single house.
Which is not what a common thief does.
Not at all. For Venkatesan to even think about crossing a threshold, two non-negotiable conditions had to be met. First, the house had to have plenty of gold.
And second,
The housewife living there had to fit his specific standard of beauty.
that's a crucial detail. It means he was doing surveillance far beyond just checking if the lights were off. He was casing the occupants themselves based on these two dark criteria.
Exactly. And the sources are explicit about this. If either one of those components was missing, not enough gold, or the woman didn't meet his profile, he would not cross the doorstep.
Wow. That calculation, that just amplifies the fear, doesn't it? People knew his crimes weren't random. They were specific, intentional.
And chillingly personal. And it's this premeditation that makes his debut so theatrical. He didn't just commit a crime, he announced it.
Like a declaration of war.
It was the ultimate declaration of war against the police's authority. Let's look at the timeline of that first big incident. It's December 6, 1985. The time. Exactly 2 a.m.
Middle of the night.
The city's asleep. But Venkatesan is setting the stage. And he places this call
To where?
to the R.K. Nagar police station in North Chennai. You have to picture it. A quiet station, a drowsy head constable picks up the phone, expecting, a routine call.
And instead of a victim, he gets the criminal himself.
Precisely. The voice on the other end says his name, Kuthirai Venkatesan. And then, without any hesitation, he gives the officer the exact address of the house he is currently robbing.
Unbelievable. He's dictating the scene of his own crime, so he's calling to confess.
He's calling to taunt. He tells the officer he's already robbed the ornaments, and now he's attacking the housewife. But the real insult comes next. He challenges the constable directly. He just says, "You can't catch me."
That is just pure psychological dominance. He's giving them all the information they need, but telling them they're going to fail anyway.
And then comes the mic drop, his escape plan. He boasts, "I am going to jump into the Cooum River now and escape. Catch me if you dare."
So he hands them his name, the crime, the address, and his exit strategy, all in one call.
And he secured a psychological win before a single patrol car could even start its engine.
Did the police even believe him at first? I mean, who does that?
No, of course not. They dismissed it. They figured it was a prank caller, maybe someone drunk. And that dismissal, that was Venkatesan's first major victory.
Because by the time they realized it was real.
He was long gone, having escaped exactly as he promised. So the police started the investigation, already humiliated. They failed to act on perfect intelligence that was handed to them.
And when they finally get to the scene, I assume the victim's story confirms everything.
Everything. The brutality, the threats to kill her family, the theft. But the physical evidence just presented an even bigger mystery.
Which was?
The central question that plagued every investigator was, how did he get in the house?
There was no forced entry.
None. The house was locked securely from the inside. No damage to doors, windows, locks. To the first officers on the scene, it was like the thief had just materialized inside.
Okay, so that immediately makes the whole thing feel impossible. If you can't even figure out how he got in, you start thinking up supernatural reasons.
You're exactly right. That's why in the initial reports, the police started describing him as moving like an invisible ghost.
They actually used that phrase.
They did. They literally couldn't comprehend it. How a man could be inside a locked house 1 minute and then vanish without a trace the next.
That name, Invisible Ghost, it really speaks to the pressure he was putting on them. But his more famous name is Kuthirai the Horse. How do you go from being a ghost to a horse?
That nickname comes entirely from his signature exit strategy and his exceptional physical fitness. Remember that first taunt?
I am going to jump into the Cooum River.
That wasn't an empty threat. It was his calling card. After every crime, he'd call the police to mock them, knowing they were on their way, and then he'd use the river as his personal escape route.
So the Cooum River, which cuts through the city, that was his freeway.
Absolutely. It's dark, murky, complex terrain for anyone trying to pursue him. But for Venkatesan, it was cover. His routine ship, call the police, dive into the river, it required incredible stamina.
He was fit.
Extremely fit. He ran, he swam, he just disappeared like a galloping horse. And that's how he earned the name, Kuthirai.
That's brilliant in a twisted way. He turned a geographical hazard into a psychological shield and a brand. Every time the police saw that river, they were reminded of him.
It was a constant visible symbol of their failure. They knew where he was going, but they just couldn't catch him in that environment.
So if the first call was a taunt, his next move was just pure escalation.
The audacity of the second call is what really pushed the police over the edge. It moved from an investigation into institutional vengeance. The very next day, he calls the station again.
Not reporting another crime, I'm guessing?
No. He was bragging about the profits.
You're kidding.
His exact words were something like, "I sold the stolen gold, sir. Good profit. I'll let you know before the next heist." He was treating the police like his personal accountant.
I have to ask, did the police ever think, wait a minute, maybe we can use his arrogance against him? He's giving us so much information.
I think eventually, yes. But initially, the rage and the humiliation just overshadowed any kind of strategic thinking. I mean, when a criminal is openly reporting his profits, it just destroys public trust.
So for the police, this became about saving face.
It became a desperate quest to regain their self-respect. They just couldn't take the shame. And that's when Inspector Rajaram enters the story at the RK Nagar station.
And the sources say he was consumed by this hunt.
He was. Rajaram understood Venkatesan wasn't just stealing gold. He was stealing the credibility of the entire police force. The sources say he abandoned food, he abandoned sleep, driven purely by this need for vengeance.
So what did he do differently? You can't just send patrol cars after a guy who swims away.
That's the crucial thing. Rajaram knew the standard response was useless. He had to counter Venkatesan's two biggest advantages, the surprise of the phone call and the river escape. So they started intensely monitoring the areas right next to the Cooum.
Setting up stakeouts.
Stakeouts, plainclothes officers, all along the riverbanks, even in the middle of the night. Essentially trying to turn his escape route into an ambush point.
So the hunt becomes this relentless, obsessive campaign, matching Venkatesan's obsession with their own institutional rage?
Absolutely. And Rajaram's decision to forego sleep wasn't just for show, it was necessary. Venkatesan only operated in the dead of night. So Rajaram had to be out there, trying to outthink a criminal whose whole gimmick was giving the police a head start and still winning.
Looking back at the start of this whole saga, it's just a masterclass in criminal branding. What are the two biggest takeaways for you?
Well, first, it has to be his strange, dark, dual selection criteria, the need for both wealth and a specific type of victim. It made his crimes terrifyingly premeditated.
Right. It wasn't random.
And second, just his genius use of geography. The Cooum River wasn't just an escape route. It was his signature. It was the physical proof he was better, faster, stronger, earning him the name Kuthirai. He literally ran circles around them.
It's just a potent example of how a criminal's arrogance can multiply their impact far beyond the actual value of what they stole.
It really is. It began with a single taunting laugh in 1985 and became a genuine nightmare for a whole part of Chennai. And here's something to think about as you take this deep dive away with you.
Okay.
Venkatesan controlled the narrative through communication. In a world where police forces rely so heavily on public trust, how much more damage can a cunning criminal do when their main tactic is purely psychological? Using taunts, using
Yeah.
arrogance to undermine the very authority of the people meant to protect us.
It suggests credibility is often the first casualty when chaos takes over.
Exactly.
A fascinating and deeply insightful thought to end on. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.